when I think about like the long-term health of the business, like the odds that we are a well-run, profitable business 10 years from now is higher if I optimize for seasonal flatness than 10% higher earnings in any given year. It's like, okay, how do I make this business work for me, right? In a way that like the team is happy to work there, the clients are happy with the service, and I like enjoy it. Because I think that ultimately I keep coming back to this framework that like whatever we can do for this business to exist 10 years from now is more valuable than anything I do to grow it a little bit extra today.
Newco Risk is a specialized insurance brokerage focused on the needs of financial sponsors, including private equity firms, independent sponsors, and search fund buyers, and the companies they acquire.
Bay Business Group is your plug-and-play finance and accounting team. They handle all the unsexy but critical accounting stuff: bookkeeping, payroll, bill pay, invoicing, and budgeting, using modern cloud tools with clean weekly and monthly reports. Small businesses do not need more fixed costs and more headcount. They need some staff accountant support, some controller support, and some CFO support.
This is what they do. All of their clients get a dedicated controller/CFO, an accountant who knows their business, meets with you regularly, and helps you make better decisions. Owned and operated by former searchers and former big PE accounting due diligence providers.
All right. Welcome back to The Intentional Owner. It's finally just you and me, Sam. I feel like we've done guests for a while now.
I know. And now people are going to have to suffer through just you and me.
Do we have anything left to say to people? That's the real question.
Well, I was a little concerned about this.
Yep.
So I went to GPT and had a little help. And clearly, two things. One, we have some serious gaps in some conversation areas that we should touch on. So we're going to do that over the next few months. And two, it's kind of nice too. It sounds like we've carved out an area where we have covered a lot of ground.
Totally. I mean, we've talked about this before, is how do you define success for this podcast, right? And the easy way is off of listens, right? And just make sure like the number of listens goes up. But the problem with that is like the best way to do that is to make the content as broadly applicable as possible, which is not actually what we want to do, right? Like we don't actually want to be like lowest common denominator or like the widest range. So like I'm always stuck on this idea of like, I wish we could measure like quality listens, like people who are really in the trenches with us and like they're the ones listening and getting, something out of this. There's no good way to measure that, sadly.
I agree. But one thing we would love to do, and I think we're putting this plug in because it's fun, not just because it's useful, but is like a grab bag of questions. We'd love to do an episode where it's just trying to cover a bunch of questions from our listeners. And I know you get them a bunch of ways: email, Twitter, LinkedIn. So do I. But we'll make one more ask, which is if you can, send us the topics you want us to cover, the questions. Doesn't matter if it's search phase, operating phase, after all of the phases. We'd love to know what's on your mind.
Actually, and I got a question that maybe we should do next time, which I thought would be interesting, is one of my friends/listeners reached out to say like, hey, like as search gets more and more competitive, like how do we think about starting a business versus buying?
It's a great point. I actually think it's a legitimate question these days.
Totally. So that might be a full topic for another day. Obviously, we have a topic today, but curious, before we dive into that, how is Q1? We're done. How did that go for you?
Oh God, like every Q1, it's like, geesh, it's already, almost 4 months into the year now. And I can't believe that. What tends to happen is I think most of us in small business land are like very counter to our prior lives. We actually can take a break at the end of Q4. So then you're shaking the cobwebs off the first few weeks of January, trying to do a lot of like year ahead planning, whether you do EOS or whatever you're doing. If you didn't get through all your year-end reviews, for you, you're probably writing like an investor update, trying to synthesize how your year went, closing your January books. Bam, you have your annual like 1099 deadline. And then, so the first time you're actually in the normal phase of running your business, it's February. You're
If that, yeah.
if that. So February might feel normal, but then for me, I have conference after conference. So I'm on the road for abnormal amounts of travel, which is great. And then you get to March and it's like tax entity tax deadline. And then you know that you need to get at April 15 doing extensions, updating investors on estimated K1s or at least a sense for it. So every year it's like, oh my God, it's the 1st of April and I don't even feel like I did anything.
Totally. The blocking and tackling in Q1 is painful. And we do all of our reviews in January, not December. So yeah, so we have all of the annual reviews and then all of those other things you talked about, which is like in theory for us it's our slow season. It just doesn't feel that way because I guess it'd feel worse if we're also high on operating, but at least like our operations are slower.
Which kind of goes back to your business is seasonal. It's not seasonal in the way it would have been if you had bought in that business up in Alaska,
Totally,
where it would have been like a 0 for 6 months.
totally.
But I do think your seasonality lets you do some work on the business planning type things that if you were just on the hamster wheel 24/7, 365, you wouldn't be able to do.
Mm. No, I think that's probably right. The weird thing though is in Q1 because our operations are slower and our lead flow is slower, I almost need to spend more time on sales and marketing, right? And like actually pushing the string of new leads. And that takes more effort than a lot of things because like at least in the summer, you can kind of turn on advertising and that works better because the search volumes are there. Whereas in Q1, the search volumes aren't there. You have to go actually go generate interest. So that becomes more challenging.
Have you noticed any trends there where like your off season or maybe it's full year round, like non PPC, non paid ads marketing is starting to bear fruit in the slower times?
I think it is. Like I track our how many estimates we give per quarter, and it has consistently gone up every year in every
Yeah.
quarter. And I mean, even Q4, we matched the prior Q4, but like the prior Q4 had a big storm in it, which is probably good for like 40 leads. So it's still, worth it was still a growth year in that sense. But even, yeah, like I think we're starting to see some of the commercial work that I've been pushing. The leads. We're starting to see the leads. I don't think we've seen the work yet. But we did a conference a couple weeks ago on a Friday, like a homeowner association management firms, like their conference. And we got probably like so far at least 4 leads on HOAs around the area. So if we can even close one of those, like one of those is like a 300 house HOA.
Oh, got it. Single family home neighborhoods.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking like multifamily. Those are very different things.
No, there are some multifamily. Like one of the leads we got is a multifamily HOA where it's just one building that
Yeah.
is getting, has trees around it. But the one that I'm more curious to see if we win, it's a little bit outside our service area, but it's like it's big enough that it's worth it. So our arborist is going to go down on Thursday, and basically I've blocked this whole day to do 2 HOAs there that combined are about 300 homes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
so we'll see.
All right. So back to like the cadence of Q1 work. I go back and forth every year when it comes like December 1st time. And I ask myself, okay, assuming I can predict that it's going to be kind of slow at the end of the month, which for us this year it wasn't because we closed a big
Hmm.
acquisition 2 days before Christmas.
Right.
And that was fine. Like, absolutely fine. I just wonder, like, with the benefit of hindsight and the busyness that is Q1, would it be better to use the 2 slow weeks in December more proactively? Or is it more useful to just take the time, spend it with family, calm the mind down, check off, kind of cross off some to dos, but generally take it slow and reset?
Well, I've thought about this, right? Is like, would you rather take time off when everyone else is on, right? Because then like travel is cheaper, you can more easily get away, like things are less crowded, like there's all these benefits. The problem is like if nobody else can get away, like it depends on how much you're trying to do just stuff with your family versus your broader family or friends and family. Like you can't really get around Christmas, right? But to the extent that like in the future I started to trade the week after Christmas and I work that week, but then take the first week of January off, like it's probably a trade I would make.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. In fact, that's it kind of goes back to one of the big benefits in large part you can control is the flexibility.
Well, I've had this idea in my head that so I took a full week off in February this year, which I don't think I've ever done before. Like I think it's the first time I've taken a full week off while the business is fully on. So that was new, and it was like weekend to full weekend. And I'm curious to like next year test that as 2 weeks off and sort of see how that feels and see if I can get to like a full month, because that's what Peter Lohman at from Crane, he kind of talks about a Crane break, right?
Yeah.
It's like you take a whole month away from the business and that really tests what your business can handle. I kind of love that as just like a concept that each year your business, like you work on it all year and then in February or whatever month you choose, like you test it to see like, okay, are the systems you actually made this year, are they actually that resilient?
And further, if you've proactively chosen to take the marathon approach to small business ownership without an ability to go away for an extended period of time, like I don't know if you've achieved the objective.
Totally.
So it's a great point.
Maybe I would keep on my February plate, like I'd keep my like taxes and stuff like that. So that'd be like the one thing I do, which I can do from anywhere.
Yeah,
And so like I'm still doing the basic admin type work. So it's not, I guess it's not truly fully off, but as close to off as it gets.
sure. I should say maybe part of the reason that it felt so busy is I actually did take this year, I think it was 4 days for a ski trip.
Nice.
And I definitely didn't go dark. I remember being on phone calls all those days, but like I didn't open up the laptop and grind.
Yeah.
And then I did the same thing for a spring break trip because this year I'm really trying to create some of that balance with my kids while we're at that age, where
Yeah.
they're starting to remember these trips and this is going to be
Yep.
like core memories for them.
Yep.
So 4 days skiing, 4 work days, and 5 during spring break.
Hmm.
So that's probably better than I've ever done, but it also probably explains why it just has felt like a hamster wheel the rest of the 13 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Cause I mean, the real challenge I think for business owners is can you take time off without coming back feeling like you're a week behind?
Yeah. I'm not there. Maybe you
Yeah.
are, but we say it all the time. Every time we take a big trip, my wife's job's a little different because she's not like the principal owner of her business. And two, dentistry appears to be like a much more plug and play, like plug
Mm.
in, plug out. It doesn't follow you if you're not the owner. But I definitely pay a toll the week after I get back.
Mm. No, and so that's the part where I'm like, that seems like a that feels like a structural issue,
Yeah.
right? Like
Oh, yeah.
that's like that's not solved by taking more time off or like unplugging better while you're away. Like that work itself just needs to not be any like I'm trying to think about it more in the lens of like every Monday I set a couple things for the week that I'm hoping to accomplish, right? Like last week for our leadership team we have Q1 bonuses. So like last week I needed to calculate and pay out Q1 bonuses. Like those are my like one-off things for any given week that I'm working on. And so if I could, I shut those off when I'm gone. Like I don't have any new one-offs in the week that I'm gone, obviously. And so then it's really like, what is the underlying current of recurring work? Is how much is that?
Yeah. So I do something similar. Like I'll bet you if you looked 6 months out on your calendar, you still have significant amounts of block time for like your recurring meetings. So in advance of a trip, I go and clean all those out.
Nice.
So I either, for ones that cannot be missed, I'll either front the week before, defer them to the week later. Like for
Hmm.
us, like on our podcast recording, if we're scheduled to do one that week, I'll just ask, hey, let's do it the week before or the week after. So
Yep.
there is a toll to pay there.
Yep.
On a lot of stuff though, like you just have to axe it. Like whether it's a level 10 or a pipeline review weekly or all of that recurring stuff, I actually look at it as a chance for everyone else to continue on.
Yep.
like at the end of the day, it's bad. It's bad structure for me to be a cog in the wheel. So, but then
Totally.
it gives you the white space to deal with the fire drills that come in inevitably.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I'm struggling with is our sales team meeting every Thursday. That's like I run that.
What does that mean? Like you guys go through your pipeline, your backlog.
It's less that actually. It's more we go through the jobs that were completed the last couple weeks and look for things that went well or went poorly. And so it's meant to give the sales team a chance to calibrate because like that's our we're constantly like bidding a new job gets completed. We need a feedback loop. So that's what that sales meeting is for, is really those feedback loops. And at the moment, or it's just something like, hey, crew leaders gave us some feedback, it gets funneled to me, and so then I kind of like deliver the feedback, right? And so that's what the use case for it. But if I'm not there, like we don't do it. Like I need a backup plan for if I'm not there to run the sales meeting.
Well, in a bigger business, you'd have a sales manager who could run that. But you are the
Absolutely.
sales manager. That's one of your
Things.
your R&Rs under your for your role as owner.
Correct.
And probably your focus on growth means that's a responsibility you're not going to delegate anytime soon.
No, no. Like, and we've thought about when would we make a sales manager hire or promotion or whatever, and like that's one of our later on the roadmap type of hires because it's
Yeah.
just so mission critical for now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm wondering too, like I'm literally doing it live now. We did it
Yep.
when we were talking about our podcast planning, but also my first question I'm asking myself is like, how can AI support? Is there a role it can play now? Like, did you create a dashboard or a tool to track that you can upload
Yep.
and spit out a report and maybe help
Yep.
you manage it asynchronously instead of having to
Yep.
be so synchronous?
Yep. Well, it's a good question. So I actually started playing around with that. I kind of hit some walls and got bored, and so I stopped. You know how that thing goes. But basically, I have figured out in our CRM, like invoicing software, like okay, like this is how I export out all of the like project level clock in clock out whatnot. And so then that CSV file that gets spit out, I put that into a Google sheet that I've already set up all the formulas, so it creates like a pretty dashboard. So I did actually with Claude Cowork for a while play around with like, okay, like this is how you log in and this is how you pull that report and this is how you put it, and like it was just like too many steps and it required like logging into the CR. Like I kind of hit some walls where this is like my ability to use AI right now is like I can get 80% of the way there and that last 20% is what kills you. But like I think if I were better at AI, like I could have automated that report and then the team could just look at the report without me and be like, okay, let's look at a few of these.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize you were the report creator here. So that's another reason why you're necessary to that meeting.
Correct.
It's not like an accountability that you're creating. It's also a information you're bringing to it.
Correct. And I think there is like the actual creation of the report, like I could probably delegate now and we have a sales support overseas hire. And so that person like could be filling that and doing it for me.
Sure.
But I haven't quite yet figured out the like when you pull that data and I put it into the report, like I exercise judgment where I look through and I'm like, oh, like this one looks funky because we split it into 2 days rather than one. Like, like I know there's some context to why certain numbers look the way they do. And so that's the part that I haven't actually figured out how to, make useful. But really, I should have somebody else create the report and then I just go through it and I X out stuff that I'm like, hey, funky thing happened here. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But then you combine that with the fact that like the CRM itself, the software gets updated every like 3 weeks, I feel like. And so then whatever you thought you had built is probably gonna break anyways. So I don't know. It's a tough like doing what I should do with that feels so obvious. Actually doing it is so much harder for some reason.
Yeah. And yet, like knowing your objectives around growing your business, I'm not sure you actually want to remove yourself too much from this
No,
function.
no. Especially not when we are like, this is that crucial time of year where it's the very end of our slow season. We're about, spring break is now over, so we should start to pick up into the busy season. Like every sale counts right now because our backlog is super tight, And so like our prices are tighter. Like we're running seasonal pricing, like all of that stuff, which is actually a good, we could segue into what we
Yeah.
wanted to talk about. But we've never done that before, right? Like we've never done seasonal pricing, but this year we are because we are pushing our capacity side more.
Meaning you're lowering pricing in the slow season to try and build your backlog out because
Correct.
you staffed up on capacity and therefore can burn through it quicker.
Correct. Which is interesting, right? Because like there's some weird break even math that happens, right? Where like if you could sell higher volume at a lower price, that actually generates more gross profit than selling lower volume at a higher price. Like that, you have to figure that math out. And like it's really hard to actually sit down and do the math. But you can, like, once you've run the business for a while, you kind of have that gut feel for it. And I feel like we have that gut feel to be like, okay, no, I would rather run 4 crews at a lower hourly rate than run 3 crews at a higher hourly rate.
And so you also then have to blend that with the fact that like leads are, is it far more sparse this time of year or like moderately less volume?
It's a good question. This will be in my SM Bash presentation this week, actually. But like
Nice.
for context, yeah, like our Q1, we had about 600 leads, like estimates given, versus Q4 was about 700, and Q3 was about 950, and Q2 was about 750.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there's some real variability there,
I'd
like
also love to
50%.
know like, well, I was about to ask like maybe the average dollar amount per lead or per quote. Those are leads,
Mm,
not quotes. So those are different, right? Because you don't quote every
yeah,
lead.
that's right. These are basically like these are appointments we actually had,
Okay.
but not necessarily quotes given, correct? Because like some of them there is no quote. It's a pretty high percentage of them have quotes, so I don't bother differentiating between the two. But it's not people who called in. Like I am picking up the conversion from called in to lead scheduled. Like these are actual scheduled meetings.
Got it. So based on, maybe a quick Google map search, it looks like it would be worthwhile to get in the car, drive out there, spend the money to go
Exactly.
quote. So it's like it's a qualified lead, so to speak. That's how you count them.
100%.
So what was the
Correct.
delta like high quarter versus low quarter?
So for last year, so if I did it all within 2025, so it's apples to apples, like Q1 2025 was about 550. Q2 was Q2 was 750, and then Q3 was like almost 950,
Okay, so it's almost 2 to 1.
almost by Q3. Yeah.
Got it. So then the challenge on your pricing, and to be clear, like seasonal pricing means with leads in half, how much are you willing to cut price and
Yep.
sacrifice gross margin in order to build your backlog up, run more crews, and generate more gross profit dollars?
Exactly. And so that's like, I mean, we have basically roughly only cut our pricing about 10% from what we were running at last year, but that's not a small amount, right?
Last
Like,
year, high quarter or like Q4?
well, so we've never really done this before, running seasonal pricing. This is like the price we ran all year last year, we have cut by 10% during Q1 right now.
Okay. I was expecting you to
Uh,
have to generate a bigger discount.
we might. I mean, that's the like it's worked just enough right now, but our backlog is tight, right? So like unless we start to really see that pick up again, we might have to cut further.
And you're running a fourth crew, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So, I mean, in theory, you burn through your backlog
Faster.
25% faster, whatever it is.
Exactly. So that's like there's this kind of like constant math I'm playing between how much our crews can actually burn a week, how much we're actually selling per week, and at what price point are we selling. And that's the nature of any of these project-based businesses, right? You're always kind of managing those things in conjunction.
Totally. But you're used to it doing that in the residential context where a job can be done, what, a few jobs a day, or maybe on a
Hmm.
big residential project, a full day job
Yep.
for a crew to if you
Yep.
can capture some bigger commercial wins, they might take a crew up for a week.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Depending on the job, but yes, like the commercial jobs will generally probably be larger, and we can price those tighter then too because they just fill up the calendar.
Right. Right.
So that's the part that like I've been interested to see how much our fourth crew, like it's so much higher incremental margin than any of the previous crews. And so the way you can think about it is like, okay, if like rough numbers, right? Let's say like the first three crews, if they are generating, let's say a 50% gross margin, which is like what a lot of service trades are trying to get to. Let's say they're generating like a 50% gross margin at like a 150 labor rate, whatever, right? Pick a number just to make the math easy. So like you're pricing your labor out to clients at 150 an hour, and that is generating a $75 gross margin per hour worked. That fourth crew, what I am seeing is like it's coming in at more like 70 to 80% incremental margin because there's just so little incremental cost associated with it on even in any of the COGS lines, which at first I was like, why does that actually make sense? Is it because I'm like overloading indirect labor? And I think partially it is that I'm overloading indirect labor into COGS. And the reality in my business is that like our sales arborists, for example, like like they're pretty much direct labor, right? Like you need to grow them as you grow crew capacity. So it's the bifurcation between the two is difficult. But then basically, like if you say, okay, like that fourth crew, let's say it's like 75% margin. If you actually want to price it at a 50% margin from that 150,
You can
like
seriously cut price.
you can seriously cut pricing, right? So that's where it's like that 150, if it's generating 75% margins, you could probably cut that price down to like 100, right? And get to the same $75 an hour. And so that's like, okay, that's a $50 decrease on the fourth crew. Instead, you can share that across all four crews, right? And so rather than taking $50 off of one crew, you divide that across all four and you take 150 down to 140, right? And that or 137 or something, whatever that math is. And that's effectively like a 12% price decrease, and you're at the exact same spot.
Fascinating. To be clear, it's just like because I was slow, maybe other people want to admit that they're slow too. What you just said is that the typical direct material, direct labor was always in your cogs. I wasn't following for a sec there because, like, I'm trying to think of what's in your cogs. There's no material. It's equipment rental or equipment allocation. There's
Yeah,
direct
it's
labor,
fuel. Yeah,
fuel. It's the indirect costs that you've baked into cogs that when you spread over a fourth crew, you don't have actually any more indirect costs to allocate. You're just taking your fixed indirect costs and spreading them over more labor hours.
correct. And the reality is like our indirect labor, it's like me, it's my operations manager, we have one scheduler in the office, and then it's our overseas team, right? But like it's a very small, it's not big enough to feel worth separating basically because that's like a bookkeeping headache. And like obviously I should like the PE version of me is like, yes, I know I should split out direct and indirect labor, but it's just like it's not actually worth the headache. And I know what's happening here, right? And so like that is the game we've been playing for the last 3 years is how do we keep adding crews to pay for more indirect labor? This is the first crew that we can add without adding indirect labor.
So, or said another way, because like there's some verbiage people here, you've sort of gotten up a step function a little bit. So you've acquired indirect labor. You could
Yep.
add, you've added a fourth crew. Maybe you could add a fifth crew without
Yeah,
having to hire any overhead, back office, whatever, wherever that spend is.
yep,
So every incremental gross margin dollar is going to fall to the bottom line
pretty
all
high.
the all the way or almost all the way.
Totally. And so that's where I'm like, okay, like if you, let's say a crew in theory can generate like $1 million of revenue like on average across a bunch of trades and whatnot, and you're solving to a 50% gross margin, like if it is at 75% gross margin, right? Like the difference is 250K of incremental margin there. So you could actually put in another one new indirect hire at like 120
Yeah.
loaded cost
Yeah.
and still be okay, right?
Right.
And so like really each incremental crew can pay for like 2 indirect hires, and then you're kind of at the same spot. So that's what we've been doing the last few years is we've needed to add the indirect hires, and we have at a cost of like probably 2 per. But now like, yes, we will need to add another one to do the 5th, but we won't need to add 2.
Right. Or if really what you're trying to do is just send more gross margin dollars down to the bottom line and build some cash. Let's say your $1 million of revenue accrue typically runs 50% gross margin and 25% SG&A so that you drop 25% to EBITDA. Well, then if you're just make the math easy, if on a fourth crew, 100% of gross margin dollars fall to the bottom line, maybe that's too aggressive. Like, but whatever, math is to keep it easy. It means, well, if you have no additional incremental SG&A, you only need to generate the 750 to still drop to 500. Sorry, you don't need the 25 per $250,000 of SG&A to bake in. So like you can cut cost or cut pricing a lot and still be dropping the same gross margin dollars all the way down.
No, that's exactly right. And this is what Rich Jordan has talked to me about for
Yeah.
years. I just haven't really like believed him enough to like do it. Is like his view has always been like if you need scale, which is what we have needed, right? We've needed scale to be able to run a good business. Like you should be pricing as close to like gross profit neutral as you can, because like that's the price point at which you can add scale and be able to afford those incremental hires. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And so that's where I'm like, obviously, like everything we talk about at SMB world, the advice is always like raise prices, which is usually true for, especially for search deals. Like once you're 3 or 4 years in, like that calculus starts to feel a little bit different.
Yeah, no doubt. And especially in
Yeah,
the seasonal business, right?
totally.
Where like you could raise price right now and with half the lead flow of your busy season, like you would be forced to cut a fourth crew back, maybe even be cutting a third crew back, and then you sort of feel the sharp other side of operational leverage, which is now the indirect hires you hired work against you.
Totally. And when you're ready to ramp up into the busy season, now you don't have the crews you want, right? So you can't actually get them like fully productive in the summer either when
Oh,
you
that's a
want
good
them to.
point. Do you
So
have any
some
competitors to
businesses,
furlough?
yeah, so definitely we do, and there are some trades where that is super normalized. Like if this tree company was in Alaska, right? Like that's pretty much what you have to do. Either you have a
Yeah.
counter trade like snow shoveling, or you put people on unemployment, right? And like some businesses, like the people kind of understand that's how this works. Is I get paid a lot in the summer, and then I'm on unemployment in the winter, and like they're okay with that. Seattle, as a like season market, like as a climate, is too moderate for that, right? Like we can work all year, and like if we did seasonal layoffs, like they will find work, right? And like then they're probably not going to come back, which is obviously reasonable. That's their prerogative. And so I don't want to do seasonal layoffs, even just for their own like life instability. But I just don't think we would be able to retain our best people if we did that.
Mm. Mm. So in some sense, you're like forced into this situation where you need to keep a fourth crew and therefore like keep the backlog built.
Correct. And so I've always talked about this in the format of like you either lay off crews or you really build up your backlog going into the winter, right? Like those are your options, which means you are under optimizing in like Q3 and Q2, right? Because like in theory, you should have more crews in that summer, really go attack the work. But we like let our backlog build up to like 10 weeks because we're preparing for winter, so we don't have to do seasonal layoffs.
Right.
Now, there's a third lever in there, which I have not really considered moving that much, and that's price, right? Like we could continue to attack Q2 and Q3 at relatively high production levels, only ever get to a 4 or 5 week backlog going into winter, but then more dramatically cut prices such that we are able to kind of like muddle our way through all winter.
Hmm. Have you, I mean, I'm sure you have. Have you thought about like also having the reverse raise prices in the busy time,
Yep.
which you have not done yet, right?
Yeah, not really. I mean, we've just had one price all year,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, yeah,
whether it's raise or
yeah,
low, I don't know. But we have. And I mean, we obviously like we raise prices when there's storms because like then we're doing emergency work.
yeah.
So like we definitely do like the equivalent of like surge pricing and whatnot. But I haven't quite dialed in the right way. Like, how do you do dynamic pricing well? Like, I don't know yet.
An algo where it's all click based. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I wish.
Yeah,
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's like, I know that if we hit Thanksgiving at around 10 weeks of backlog, I feel pretty good we'll be okay for the winter. Right. And now the challenge is if I say, okay, we're not going to let ourselves get above 6 weeks of backlog ever. Because, like, because then clients are saying no above that, which I get. Well, it's our return clients are the ones who really don't care waiting. Like, if I say that, then the answer I need to actually solve is like, what price do I need to go down to make sure we're okay for the winter? I don't know. And like, that's a scary experiment.
I'll throw another one in there, which is like, could there be a surge price or a tack on to cut the line?
To cut the backlog line.
Yeah,
Well, we have played around with that in the past where, because like clients all the time, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to wait 8 weeks. And then
yeah,
we'll say, like, hey, look, like we can rush it. We can figure out a way to get you slotted in early, but it costs this extra.
yeah.
And like usually the clients are like, well, actually, I'm fine waiting. It's a good way to it's a really good way to test how much it really is urgent or not. And so we have done that. The only downside of that is an operational one, which is that like your schedule isn't baked the way you want it to be baked. Like you basically have to like artificially leave openings in your schedule for the next week.
Or you have to run OT crews at a higher price point that probably cuts into the surge price anyway. And what's the
True.
point?
I mean, we would do that way too, right? We'd say like, hey, like we can do that, but we'd have to run it as a Saturday crew,
Yep.
and they get paid double time for that. And so this is the additional charge. That's like the easy way to do it is to offer it as a Saturday. The harder way to do it is to hold time in your calendar to allow for people to pay for rushes.
Yeah. Cause then you're just gambling.
Correct. And like we've experimented with both. And like the nice thing is like, okay, if you leave a slot open and then nobody ends up wanting to pay a rush charge to fill it, you can then call one of your repeat clients who's booked 7 weeks out and be like, hey, like we have a slot open. Do you want to fill it? And like we don't charge them for that. And then they're happy.
So they're
Um,
almost not, that slot will never go unfilled.
correct. It just
Almost
won't go
never.
that optimized,
Yep.
right? Like you can't always like perfectly match the job you're gonna put in. And there will come days, especially if you're only running 4 weeks of backlog, where it's like, oh, we don't really just have a job to slot in there at all. Cause like this job needs no parking signs. That job needs a neighbor agreement. Like there's just too many like
Ah,
moving
got it.
parts
Yeah.
that the jobs aren't as fungible as you would like them to be.
Got it. And so in a perfect world, you'd be able to go crush Q2, Q3 and go into Thanksgiving with a tight backlog, knowing you could optimize price down to keep it stacked all the way through winter. And what's the implication that in the Q2, Q3, you could like just run more crews and or you would raise price? Like what would be
It's
the
either or.
advantage? Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Either or, right? Like either you have more crews, but then you have to do the seasonal layoff thing, which I don't really want to do, right? Or you raise prices so your existing crews are just highly. And so like now you're basically making your earnings seasonal,
Yeah,
which like I have avoided doing that thus far.
totally. And that'll, I mean, that would be one of the answers is just trying to move some of the demand from busy season to slow season, however you
Absolutely.
can possibly do that, or backfill commercial work into the winter or something.
Correct. And so that's the question, right? Of like, would you rather have 10% more earnings for the whole year, but have way more seasonality, right? And then to mitigate that, you do exactly what you just said, right?
Yeah.
Which is you try to push demand into the winters
So why do you not desire the former? Why have you tried to avoid seasonality?
because it's a pain to operate.
Got it. Okay, that's it. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, you've
Yeah.
just tried not to have the ups and down swings in terms of your labor.
Correct. Yeah. Which is not necessarily the right answer, but like I don't think there is an obvious right answer there, right? Like there are lots of tree companies that do it the way where they're like they keep hiring the more work comes in and then they start firing as the work slows down. the downside of that is like it's very hard to build culture. It's really hard to have consistency across crews. Like when I think about like the long term health of the business, like it seems to me like I'm making a bit of a bet that I like the odds that we are a well run, profitable business 10 years from now is higher if I optimize for seasonal flatness than 10% higher earnings in any given year. And so that's that you're making that trade off, right? Of like
Yeah.
what matters more, like durability of cash flow or total cash flow.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So this is kind of related. If you were to offer your current customer base, homeowners that have trees, uh, a,
Yep.
a related service that you don't currently offer, what would it be?
I mean, the obvious one always is residential landscaping, which we just don't want to go down that path because it's such a red ocean industry. Obviously, like we have good friends now locally,
Yeah.
like researchers who have bought residential landscapers. So, and they're doing it. They're doing it well. So it's like more, and like a couple of them listen to this. So I'm sorry, David, in advance for, in case David listens to this one. But like, I'm happy to send them referrals and they send us referrals. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think that's the adjacency we actually want to go down.
Yep.
And so then you run into this, like, okay, like, is it more consulting services like tree management plans and inventories? Like, we're thinking about more of that. But outside of that, like there's not an obvious like we don't like what most companies do in areas of the country that are much more seasonal, like they do snow plowing and snow removal.
And you get
Um,
what, 5 or 10 snowstorms a year?
Not even here.
Okay, so
Like
that's not
that's the
even a
problem.
thing.
I mean, this past winter we got zero.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Part of the thing is the climate is changing here. You can really feel it from if you grew up here to today, like that the 15-year gap for me. It's like, oh, our summers are longer and drier and hotter, and our winters are more like the Northeast, where it's much colder but less precipitation. It
See,
used to be when I was in high school, it'd be like 45 to 55 and a little bit drizzly all winter, and then sometimes it would dip into the 30s and you get some snow.
so does that mean trees are growing faster?
No, it means that trees are in the summer are dying more,
Oh, interesting.
uh, which is an interesting issue. So yeah, we're doing a lot more education around like nobody who grew up in Seattle thinks you need to water your native conifers, and you actually do now because the summers
Wow.
are too hot. Yeah, so like for
Really?
our native trees, they're not designed for this kind of heat in the summer.
Fascinating.
Yep. And so also when we're replanting, like now you don't want to be replanting Washington natives as much as you'd rather replant an Oregon native or a California native because basically that climate is moving up the coast.
Got it. Just
Yeah,
more heat resistant.
correct. Yeah.
Fascinating. No, I'm just thinking outside the box, right? That's the benefit of not being anywhere near the weeds that you have to deal with. It's like you can have these fun conversations about what
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
the other one, by the way, is selling mulch, which a couple of our competitors do.
you mean
Um,
because of the fact that you're going to go on occasion tear down trees or you're cutting limbs and you can mulch them? Is that what you're saying?
no, we already do that, right?
Yeah.
Like every day we
Yeah.
have wood, like we're chipping, like we're generating, I don't know, something like 30 to 45 cubic yards of wood chips a week.
And what are you doing with them today?
Mostly there's like a website called chipdrop.com, and like these are really good wood chips for your house, like for your home landscape, and like we give it away to people or we actually pay the guy who made that website. He's a former tree guy. Such a great idea. He basically every time he just connects homeowners and tree companies to get wood chips, he charges the homeowner $20 and he charges the tree company $20 per drop, and he just takes that vig through the middle.
A nice
It's a way better
cause-free
business.
vig. Love that.
Yeah, exactly. So we do a lot. We have our own list of clients who like just want wood chips. And then worst case, if it's like bad wood chips, like it's a bunch of like hollies and invasives and stuff like that, we pay to dump them.
Oh, is this going to move the needle though? Is like the juice worth the squeeze?
The short answer, I think, is no.
Okay.
The problem is, and I've thought about this a lot, and two of our competitors are doing this, but you need land. You need around 5 to 750K worth of capex because you need to get like a nice big tub grinder because like you need to like because our wood chips are super inconsistent. They're all kinds of species. Like it's all like you need a tub grinder that like make a consistent shape and size. If you want to do it really well, you buy a dyeing machine also, so you make them all one color. So that's what that beauty bark looks like. And then you need to spend like another 250K on a mulch truck, which is a truck to actually transport the mulch to people. And if you go really big, you can get a mulch blower truck where it's like literally shooting the mulch out, right?
When I was a
Um,
searcher, I looked at one of
yeah,
these. I bid on it. It was vertically integrated all the way from like call it manufacturing the chips, painting them. They
yeah,
had a wholesale piece and then they had a retail where they'd pack it into the blower and then go out and blow it on land. It was beautiful.
yeah. I think if I were running this business less as a like a financial asset type of business and more as a like how do I manage my personal cash flow and lifestyle and everything, it would make a ton of sense because you'd get a ton of DNA off of that part of the business.
Yeah.
You could try to run it pretty close to break even. It would allow your tree company to run more smoothly because you could get rid of chips that way. And like it would be a way for you to basically like try to pay down a mortgage on some land.
Yeah. Totally.
So if we get to a future where like I buy out the investors in Bluma and I'm just
I
100%
was just
owner,
gonna say.
maybe then I'd consider it. But I think the like if you sat down and did the ROI math on it, I don't think it pencils.
Yeah, that's true. But it's a cool project for 5 or 10 years from now.
Exactly. Someday we'll see.
Someday. Or someday when like the you're growing and you need to move to a new facility and you're making a rent versus buy decision and the
Yes,
big one shows up where you can't fill it, but this is a way to put some of that space to work.
exactly. And so that's where yeah, the companies that do it are big, a little bit bigger than us, and they are basically family owned, right? Like they have to be. Like none of the like financial strategics are doing this. And I think it probably works pretty well for them. Like just in terms of simplifying their life and like they're probably not losing money on it.
Uh, there's the difference. Almost
um,
like
no,
there's a
it is
lot of
harder.
brain
Like the
damage that
deeper
goes
I
into
get,
that, right? And
yeah,
are you going to put the brain
totally,
damage into that or are you going to just put it into the core business?
absolutely. But I mean, that's always a question, right? It's like once we get to 5 crews, like that's a pretty good location, and then
Yeah.
you run into the question of like, are you going to open a second location and try to ramp that to another 5 crews? Or do you just try to make that one location of 5 crews run as cleanly and as easily as possible?
Yeah.
So the deeper I get into this, the more and more it's like, okay, how do I make this business work for me? Right. In a way that like the team is happy to work there, the clients are happy with the service, and I like enjoy it. Because I think that ultimately I keep coming back to this framework that like whatever we can do for this business to exist 10 years from now is more valuable than anything I do to grow it a little bit extra today.
Agree. And to that end, I meant to ask you. So like you've pulled yourself out of a fair number of functions in the business so you're not the bottleneck anymore.
Yep.
What's your next one?
Yeah. It's a good question.
Probably takes some you got to like take stock of like where are you still? Like what
Yeah.
functions were you the bottleneck?
My guess is I am doing a chunk of HR adjacent stuff that, like, for example, like I always send the offer letters in Gusto. I'm the one who processes the new, like, I order the new credit card for somebody. Like I add the drivers to insurance. Like, there's some of that stuff that like I can bottle up and pass off, and I just haven't yet. Like, I think that's probably the next batch as opposed to sales and marketing.
Got it. It also means that is going to be a pure cost with no revenue generation to offset it. So,
Yep.
you probably are going to feel an obligation to grow a little bit into
Correct.
hiring for that.
No, and I think that's when I think about, okay, going from 4 crews to 5 crews, like
Yep.
our business, once our fourth crew is fully ramped up and we're kind of just chugging, the business will be at a good profit level, but it will not have solved some of those issues. And so getting to the fifth crew is actually still required, so to speak, to be able to solve that next set of costs.
Yeah. I mean, and my
Just kind of
guess
the
is
nature of it.
if you can I keep honing in on like becoming a bit more of a hybrid, getting that commercial work built up
Yep.
because the tickets are bigger. You can probably scale into affording a little bit more SG&A fairly fast, even if it's not creating like a bunch of additional EBITDA dollars. It
Yep.
can self fund for a while.
100%. I mean, that's really it, right? And like, because I'm sort of my North Star right now is like to get to a 5 crew kind of enduring tree business that like just runs well and is profitable. And so I think that's where we're like on the path. It just and this pricing stuff we talked about today, like that's a big part of it is like what is our pricing strategy? Like that is partially how we get it to that 5 crew level.
Yeah.
Because leads, like sales and marketing, is like completely a different segment of this, but of course, an important segment of it, obviously. But pricing is a part of marketing at the end of the day.
Are you involved in accounting and finance still?
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, for sure. I
Why?
laugh just because
Is it because you like it? It's like you're a hobby because you're so skilled at
I
it?
have a bookkeeper. I have a bookkeeper now, so that's good.
Okay.
I am still pretty in the
And
weeds with her,
is your
though.
bookkeeper cutting checks, managing
No,
AR, AP,
no.
processing check? What is your bookkeeper doing? Like coding
My
transactions?
bookkeeper, yeah, my bookkeeper is basically doing all like the reconciliations and
Okay.
classifying expenses. I'm not really the one I'm still doing payroll and I issue any checks. Nobody else has check issuing authority yet.
Okay.
But yeah, and I do like sales tax filings and stuff. Like there's some stuff I should offload. But like well we realized over the past couple of weeks that our CRM has double synced like 30 invoices, which is really annoying because that means I overpaid my sales tax for February. And so I got to file like some addendum to get like a refund.
Or just
But
wait
again,
till
like
next month.
that's well, we do a monthly, right? So I can't file the March and say accept minus all of that stuff.
Got it.
It's
Got
I
it.
got to
Got
figure out
it.
how to.
Okay.
I don't know how it works. I got to do it today. But like figuring out that they were double invoiced and like working with the CRM to get those double invoices deleted, like that was my task, right? Like that's not really my bookkeeper's task yet. Though maybe it's yeah, I don't know. Like the AR report in QuickBooks was not matching the AR report in our CRM, which for me was the flag. But I'm the only
Okay.
one who's really looking at both.
Got it.
Like my ops manager, she's doing a great job with the AR management just in the CRM.
Yep.
But then when I went and pulled it in QuickBooks just to like for myself, just to take a look, I was like, wait, this looks like we're off by a certain amount. And then I asked the CRM provider and they're like, send me the report. And it's like, oh, this is exactly the amount that we're off by between the two. But like, I'm still the one asking and noticing the issue.
Yeah, and that's a scary one to let go of. I get it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it sounds like you're spending 5-ish, 5+ hours a week on HR adjacent and another 5-ish on accounting broadly.
Yeah, that's probably right. Maybe not 5. I'm probably spending like, it's just, it's bunchy, as you
Yeah.
know. It,
Yeah.
like when I am spending time on it, it's like 10 hours and then nothing for a couple of weeks. I don't know. This is a constant. Everything is a cost. There's very few things that drive new revenue. So just sort of like keeping my time focused on that is by far the most important.
I don't know. I mean, we're making more of a concerted push to, let's call it, execute like top down sales, like relationship management type sales, corporate
Mm-hmm.
account type sales.
Mm-hmm.
Like bottoms up has always been the way we've done it, right? Like salesmen, estimators on the
Yep.
street, bidding jobs, following up with their customers.
Yep.
That approach will always be the core and the
Yep.
primary path, but we're trying to get some of our level leadership involved in like corporate account relationship
Yep.
management to drive sales a different way. And maybe it's just one way, like you're a great writer, a great speaker, you already have your name out there. But if you could trade 10 hours out of your week and
Yep.
replace it with something like that.
No, I totally. It's funny you say that because the book The Goal by
Yep.
Ali Goldratt. Somebody who's sort of like a disciple of him, Justin, and I'm spacing on his last name, but he's speaking at SM Bash now, and he wrote another book that I'm gonna forget what the name, the Prophet, the Machine, something like
Yeah.
that. anyways, I was watching one of his videos because John Matzner has been like all over this, the theory of constraint stuff. And I was fascinated by this idea of like like he's the first person actually who has said for me this, who has validated that I don't have my sales team on commission, because he basically has the view that like you have a business as usual system, which includes salespeople basically taking orders, estimating, doing all of that, and then you have a different growth system. And like I own the growth system right now, and that's my job, is to go generate new relationships and generate new leads. But our sales team, they're not doing outside sales. They're only effectively inside or being given qualified leads.
Yep.
So like there's no reason for them to be on commission, basically.
It's a good point. Really good point.
So he's speaking at SM Bash, and I'm pumped. I sent John introduced us over email, and I sent him a long list of questions, and so I'm excited to hear his talk.
Yeah, it's so fun. Like when you become an owner, you can. I think it goes back to like you have so much agency. You have such an ability to impact your business.
Yeah,
and especially now, like you're down the curve, way out of the curve, way on the other side. So all the complexity is maybe gotten a little simpler and clearer on what the path is.
Yeah, the trade-offs seem clearer too, right? And you're sort of like picking which of the hards, like which hard path do you want to go down?
Yeah. Well, you've already made the hard choice, which is deciding like, am I going to do a growth at all costs approach to this and like sprint to eject, or am I in this for the marathon approach?
Correct. No, that's right. And once you do that, though, you have to make sure your future decisions are aligned with that initial trajectory.
Totally.
Newco Risk is a specialized insurance brokerage focused on the needs of financial sponsors, including private equity firms, independent sponsors, and search fund buyers, and the companies they acquire.
Bay Business Group is your plug-and-play finance and accounting team. They handle all the unsexy but critical accounting stuff: bookkeeping, payroll, bill pay, invoicing, and budgeting, using modern cloud tools with clean weekly and monthly reports. Small businesses do not need more fixed costs and more headcount. They need some staff accountant support, some controller support, and some CFO support.
This is what they do. All of their clients get a dedicated controller/CFO, an accountant who knows their business, meets with you regularly, and helps you make better decisions. Owned and operated by former searchers and former big PE accounting due diligence providers.